So far, we have learnt that the sounds that we use as the building blocks for all the words in our language are called phonemes. We have a set of phonemes that we use to make English, and in standard English, most people have 44 of these phonemes that we build all our words out of. And our phoneme set can be divided up into 24 consonants and 20 vowels. We can define the consonants based on how and where in the mouth we make them, and the vowels we can kind of define as well by how high or low the tongue is and how open our mouth is or how round our lips are. So essentially all of these sounds, we can define them by how we make them and also where we make them. And we have also learned that linguists use the International Phonetic Alphabet as a tool for consistently transcribing the sounds in speech made by humans onto paper, so that one sound will equal one symbol as much as possible. So far so good, yeah. But how do we actually talk? I'm going to show you one little other thing you can do with the IPA. If you put it in the two backslashes like this means this is a phonemic transcription. These theoretically are the phonemes in this word. Sometimes, though, I'll put it into square brackets. This is a phonetic transcription, as in, this is how the word actually sounds. Because, as you're going to see in a second, the way that we talk is not always exactly what the words theoretically should be on the page. Have a look at this picture here. You've got all these people who are talking to each other, and in the speech bubbles, we've got little curly things, which is they're talking, which is all the words connecting together to make a bit of a thread. And when you speak a whole sentence, the sounds in the words start to interfere with each other. And in connected speech, when you've got lots of words joining together to make a sentence, you can have a couple of processes happening that will change the sounds because of where they are or what they're near. The first process we'll look at is called elision. And elision is when you delete a sound. For example, these kids here are borrowing books in the library. At least for me, if someone said, say very carefully, this building where you borrow the books, I would very carefully say library. But if I was talking to someone normally, I'd probably, drop out some of that and just say library. I'm just turning off my camera so you can read the bottom line on this slide. Here, Principal Skinner has drawn an upside down lowercase e on the board. This is a symbol called, this is the symbol in the IPA that stands for schwa. The schwa is a vowel sound that you get when you don't really try to make any particular vowel sound. If you draw the map of where all the vowels are in your mouth, the schwa is the one right in the middle, basically the neutral central vowel, that if you don't really try to do anything, you just go, And in English, we have a tendency for any vowel that's in a syllable that you're not emphasizing, like any syllable that is unstressed, it'll tend to try and turn into an So when we say together, the ge in the middle, that's got a nice clear but the t and the at the end are both just schwas for most people, together. Or another example you'll be familiar with, and technically, if you look in the dictionary, it'll tell you the pronunciation is and, like that. But in a sentence like when you say fish and chips, in the real world, you probably pronounce it just fish chips with an So the and has just been reduced down to Assimilation. This means that a sound has changed to become more like a neighbouring sound. So this cursed object here is a Poppets version of a handbag. So the dictionary would say you pronounce it handbag. Now, when I'm talking quickly, it probably comes out as handbag. The N has been dragged by the B forward into bilabial nasal instead of n. The letter N, the phoneme n, the phoneme N is famously unstable and it gets dragged about all over the place. I'll show you another example. Here we have a pancake. Now, if you look in the dictionary and you're speaking, or if you're speaking carefully, you might say pancake. When you're talking quickly, you might hear people say pancake with a pang. We had an there, like it was ng instead of just an n. Again, it's the n being assimilated to the k, being dragged back to the place of articulation of the k, which is back towards the, it's a velar consonant, back towards where the soft palate is. Here's another kind of assimilation. We might have a flap or a tap. Two names for the same thing. So this picture is butter, but I'll be honest, when I'm talking quickly, I don't normally say butter. I probably just say butter with a butter, da da da. Now, all I've done there is the T, because it's between two vowels, I can't be bothered turning my vocal cords off to make the vowels, and so I'm replacing it with basically a voiced, you could transcribe it as a D, like butter, B-U-D, like I'm saying B-U-D-A, or you can transcribe it with that little symbol there. You can see it looks like an R, but it's missing part of the top line to it. I didn't put this in the IPA chart, but this is the IPA symbol for an alveolar tap, when your tongue just taps that bit there and goes butter. Very common for Australians, very common also for a lot of Americans, certain parts of the UK and stuff. This is very common in a lot of parts of the English-speaking world, saying flat a T between two vowels just turning into a tap. Butter, for example. Yeah. T normally would be unvoiced, but you can't be bothered turning off your vocal cords between the and the so you just plow straight through it. Here's a gag. Tell me if this is funny. If you're struggling with the joke, intervocalic means between vowels. Another kind of assimilation is palatalization, where a sound is pulled back towards the palate, or even pulled forwards towards the palate, depending what it is. I'll give you some examples. Did. We would say that did, but when we say did you, the Y, which is it's a palatal approximant, will start to interfere with the D in front of it. So did on its own is pronounced like that. Did you is pronounced like that. But if you're talking quickly, you'll tend to say did you, basically with a j, that affricate that in everyday English we usually write with the letter J, as in jam. Did you. If you're talking really quickly, you might even just say did you, like you didn't expect to see two different phonological processes happening in this sentence now, did you? Because I've also reduced the U in you to a schwa, so we've got vowel reduction, and the D has been palatalized into a j. Did you? Okay. The last one is insertion. Insertion is what it sounds like. You're inserting an extra sound there. My grandparents and a lot of people of their generation often, when they said the word film, would chuck in an extra vowel and get film, basically adding an extra stray schwa between the L and the M. Or some people, instead of saying athlete, will say athlete. Little things like that you might hear. My son, who's 6 years old, has a friend called Ashley. He always pronounces this kid's name Ashley. He just cannot say it without inserting an extra vowel sound there. And then another thing that happens, Aussies very often, you get a word like drawing. I had to really work to not stick an R in that. Very often, Aussies will have a thing called intrusive R. So Australian English is mostly non-rhotic, which means we don't normally say the at the ends of syllables like Americans do. Like Americans drive a car, but we just say, I drive a car. However, we do use that R when it's in the middle of certain vowels. So drawing, I would normally pronounce it like that, drawing, with a between the or and the ing. Not every English speaker does that, but I do, and a lot of Aussies do. A lot of British people do that too. Americans, not really. They'd say drawing, but drawing with a the intrusive R there, very, very common for Aussies. Another one You know, maybe a word like this, law and order. Law and order, if you say it carefully, an American would say law and order, but they would not put an R in the middle there. Law and order, an Aussie might say law and order. So again, I've got a couple of processes happening there. I have reduced the and to just and I have put an to link law to order. Law and order. And that's how I learned that the meme generator can cope with IPA symbols. Another example where we might insert something there. Going, if you look in the dictionary, we'll say it's just going. Probably should be a dot there after the U and before the I, but whatever. Going. But a lot of Aussies will pronounce it going, and they'll put in a W insertion between those two vowel sounds. Another thing where we do a bit of insertion going on is this. Seeing. Sort of a continuum where some people might say seeing as like a sequence there, but honestly, for me at least, it would often come out as seeing with a y connecting the E and the I. So just to recap, our connected speech processes we are talking about where the letters are influencing each other in connected speech. We've got elision, we've got vowel reduction, we've got assimilation, and we've got insertion. Go back and watch the video or check your Kirsten Fox textbook and see if you can define each of those four. Have fun.